My name is Sharen Gaten. I will be the moderator for this evening. I'm a proud member of the Outside Counsel Network. It's going to be myself and 6 wonderful friends who have also become professional legal colleagues of mine, I'm honored to tell you. We are going to be speaking tonight about the legal implications of COVID-19 related to public benefits, workers' comp, disability, insurance coverage, bankruptcy, immigration, personal injury, and criminal justice. Because we are all lawyers and because we have been trained to let you know at the very beginning, this is a disclaimer. We are not giving you legal advice. This does not constitute a legal agreement, but we are here to share some thoughts with you, and we hope that everyone gains from listening to this experience. First, let me introduce our panel. We start with Carolin, Consumer Debt and Bankruptcy. Next is Ms. Seema Agai, Disability Benefits. Next, we have Sanaz Bereliani, Bankruptcy for the Debtor and Creditor. Next is myself, Sharen H. Gaten, Criminal Defense and Personal Injury. Next, Nikki Jacobson, Workman's Comp and Immigration. Next, Aaron Joyce, Legal Ethics and State Bar Defense. And finally, Carolin Shining, Business Law, Intellectual Property. We are going to be going over several topics today. Our very first will be debt relief for consumers. Second will be disability and COVID-19 benefits, quite a hot topic now. Bankruptcy qualifications for those that think that that's what they need to get into. Fourth, criminal justice impacts because crime is always alive. 5, personal injury law changes for those who are still driving and still getting into accidents. 6, workers' comp, another extremely hot topic that Nikki will cover. Immigration, still very much an issue and discussed today by President Trump. And finally, business fraud and price gouging, just some helpful tips to consumers to be aware. Thank you. We will first begin with the subject brought on by Carolin. She will be speaking about protecting your money and your financial security during COVID-19.
Thank you, Sharon, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I wanted to just let you know that you're not in this alone. Everybody's going through a difficult time. Chances are either you directly have been impacted or a loved one or a client has been. And we just want to let you know that we're here to offer you options. We're here to go over what debt relief and benefits and all of those things are available to you so that you can make an informed decision on what we can do to protect you. We encourage you to ask us questions during this presentation. You can put them in the chat box. You can reach out to us directly afterwards if you want to keep your questions private. We're each going to have our email addresses on our presentations. Feel free to reach us there, or feel free to send us a message on our Outside Counsel Network Facebook page. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on some of the topics that are hot within the bankruptcy and debt settlement world. So I'm a consumer bankruptcy and debt settlement attorney with offices in Los Angeles and Orange County. As you can imagine, my phone lines have been going kind of crazy right now. A lot of people are experiencing job loss or reduced hours, and they're running out of savings. So they just don't know what else to do. They're calling for a bankruptcy consultation. And later on in the presentation, my good friend and colleague Sanaz Bereliani will go over your options when it comes to bankruptcy, how that can help you out, especially if you're a small business or a homeowner. But for now, we don't want people rushing into a bankruptcy. So when you're calling me for a bankruptcy consult, the first thing I'm going to tell you is, if you're only calling me because of the COVID-19 situation and not something pre-existing, I want to make sure you know all of your options when it comes to non-bankruptcy alternatives. And let's see how things pan out. And if in a few months you still need assistance, then we can go ahead and explore the bankruptcy route. So later on, Seema, who's another colleague of mine and an amazing benefits attorney, will go over some government assistance programs. In the meantime, I'll go over temporary hardship programs that are available to credit cards, cars, and mortgages. So let's move on to credit card payments. The first thing I want to point out is a lot of people are under the impression that just because the pandemic is going on, everything is automatically stopped. Your obligations to pay your credit cards and your other payments have stopped. So they're just stopping payments without getting in touch with their creditors. And that's going to be a huge problem. So you need to know that there are definitely a lot of temporary hardship options available for you, but the key is for you to initiate contact and for you to reach your creditors directly and work out some sort of a plan. Most credit cards currently, if you're able to show, or if you're telling them that you've experienced income loss or income reduction as a result of COVID-19 and you cannot keep up with your payments, you can request to skip up to 3 payments. Most of them are offering the option to do this online. You know, wherever you just regularly log on to your account, you can go ahead and you'll probably find a COVID-19 section. You can apply there directly. You can also call the number that's on the back of your card, but keep in mind hold times right now are in 3 to 4 hours range. So if you have an option to do it online, definitely do that. Assuming you get into a valid agreement with them, there will be no late fees, those will be waived, and there will be no negative credit reporting. The same kind of thing with vehicle payments. Again, you have to contact your lender, you have to initiate that request. And if you're financing a vehicle, most likely what they will do is they will offer you up to 3 months of skipped payments. Again, they'll waive the late fees, they will not report it on your credit. And what they will do most of the time is they will add on those skipped payments to the back end of your loan. So if you're skipping 3 payments, it's just going to extend your regular vehicle loan by 3 months. If on the other hand, you have an auto lease, what a lot of the companies are offering is the option for you to extend your lease by 3 to 6 months. And some of them are actually doing this automatically. Chase, for example, is doing it automatically with an option to opt out if you choose. And this is just helpful. Maybe you have to do some car repairs and you don't have time before you turn in your lease, or you just don't want contact with one extra person. You can call, find out your options, extend your lease out. And then I want to move on to mortgage payments because that's a big one most people are worried about. Obviously, you have to prioritize. You know, your mortgage is going to be the most important thing you worry about, then your car, then your credit cards. So with the mortgage payments, we have government-backed ones, and then we have conventional loans. If you're not sure whether your mortgage is government-backed by Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, I've included the links on here. You can go online, put in some of your information, and it'll tell you in a few seconds. If your loan is serviced by Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, then what they're offering is if you apply for help, they're giving you an automatic 6-month forbearance. If at the end of the 6-month period, you're still unable to pay, then you can apply for an additional 6 months, and they will likely ask you for documentation at that point that you needed because of COVID-19 financial implications. As far as the repayment goes, again, if you have a valid agreement, the late fees are waived and no late payments will be reported. Keep in mind that a forbearance will be reported, so that might hurt you down the line if you need to refinance. So just make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. As far as conventional loans, as of right now, most of the major banks and credit unions are giving about 3 months of a forbearance. Some of them are giving you a deferment, which is a lot better than a forbearance because with a deferment, they'll be adding the skip payments to the back end of the loan. Whereas with a forbearance, most likely you're going to have to repay either at the end of the 3-month period or you're going to get an extended repayment period. It's very important that you understand what option you're applying for, what your specific lender is offering you, because you don't want to be in a position on month 4 where you now have to come up with 3 months of missed payments. And we're hoping that the mortgage companies will give some more guidance and will be understanding and will either give borrowers the ability to, modify their loans or give them an extended repayment period. But in the event that those things don't happen, we want you to know that you still have options. So Sanaz will go into this a little bit later today. For example, a Chapter 13, if you're unable to do a loan modification or come up with the arrears, a Chapter 13 will help save your home from foreclosure. And that's all I have for you guys at this point. I will make one quick point. If you're in a position to settle out your debts, debt settlement right now is giving pretty favorable percentages, more than the usual. So that's something to keep in mind. And now I'm going to turn it over to Seema, who's going to go over all the government benefits that are available to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carolin, as someone who's really offering us some hope in a time where everything seems so hopeless. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Next, we have Ms. Seema Agai, who's very experienced, very knowledgeable, and very passionate about disability, Social Security, and other benefits. Seema, please take it away. We're just going to get you off mute, Seema.
Good idea. All right. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Sharen. Thank you, Carolin. Excellent information. Good evening, everyone. I thank you for tuning in. I hope that we are providing you with timely and useful information in this difficult time. As Sharen said, I'm a disability attorney. I am a former SSA senior attorney, and I specialize in SSA and disability law. And I also deal with contested public benefits. Okay, so I have a lot of detailed information, as you see on the slides, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to address those questions, during the Q&A section, or also after the session. Carolin told you about debt relief, and I want to discuss the other side of the coin, specifically income or loss of income. Can everyone see me? All right. Okay.
Yes, we see you, Seema. Do you have access to the first slide?
I have the first slide. I don't know if I am online, but that's okay. As long as you can hear me, that's perfectly fine.
We can hear you.
All right. So there are a lot of, as you know, there are quite a few pieces of legislation that have been passed in order to provide debt relief to individuals and businesses. The first thing that was passed is the Preparedness and Response Act, a supplemental appropriation. And what's notable in that is the $8.3 billion price tag, which is dwarfed by what was passed later. But specifically, this was designed to address the public benefit, the health, public health aspect of this. It provides money for supplies, preparedness, medical surge capacity, but this was very small compared with the next legislation that was passed. Okay, next, please. All right, so the first thing that was, the next that was passed was the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. It specifically provides for sick leave benefits, paid medical leave, and for testing and other benefits. The emergency paid sick leave and the medical leave and the paid family medical leave are all provided through employment. As you see, the numbers in terms of how much is provided under each program, but your employer provides this, and in exchange, the employer gets a tax credit for whatever services, whatever benefits that they provide you. And specifically important to note that this is what needs to be provided first, and no one is supposed to take any of their paid vacation, sick leave, or personal leave before they take this. So that's first in line. There's also testing that's covered under this, this legislation. Unfortunately, treatment is not covered, but at least testing is covered. Next, we're going to look at the famous stimulus payments. Everyone wants to know where their payments are. The eligibility for this is based on annual adjusted gross income for taxes that were filed in 2019. If they weren't filed in 2019, 2018 is fine as well. Now, it's important to note that this is an advance against a tax credit. And for that reason, this is not taxable income. Everyone is eligible for it. We'll talk about some people who are not eligible for it. But you should receive it either in your account or by check. I think that checks are going to take a long, long time to be sent out. Now, in terms of the amount of payments, let's see, $1,200 per person, $2,400 married couple, plus $500 per child. Full benefits are for incomes up to $75,000, and after that, above that, it's a sliding scale reduction. As you see, up to an annual income of $198,000. Non-resident aliens and those who are married to non-resident aliens and file joint tax returns are not eligible for this benefit. However, the state of California is providing $500 per individual to make up for that. The legislation also provides for expanded unemployment benefits. The most important part of this is that eligibility requirements are reduced. You no longer have to certify that you've been looking for work or you're ready, willing, and able. You just apply. And another important part of this, of course, is the extra $600 per week of benefits. Please note, these benefits are supposed to be only available through July 31, in effect in California, July 25 is the last date that you will receive these benefits. So there are also, please, a huge number of individuals who are affected by the shutdown orders, and those are self-employment individuals who are otherwise not eligible for any unemployment benefits. So the Act provides for pandemic economic assistance. This is administered through the EDD, but it's a separate program. So if you go to the EDD site, don't go to the unemployment insurance. There should be a section for PUA. It makes eligible or business owners, self-employed people, and it also includes the $600 benefit. Please note, you cannot file for these benefits for Tuesday, April 28th. The point of these programs is apply. Go ahead and apply. If you're not eligible, somehow they'll let you know. But otherwise, don't guess, just apply. And that also applies to the next set of benefits that are provide relief for businesses and organizations, and this also includes nonprofits. There's two parts to it. The first part is the famous PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. It is designed to incentivize employers to keep their employees on payroll, and for that, the amount of the loan is tied to the average average monthly payroll expense. The amount of the loan is that expense times 2.5 times to a maximum of $10 million. Of course, there are a huge number of small businesses that are affected. The loan is designed to be forgiven if you spend it on approved items within 8 weeks of disbursement. So keep that in mind if you get these loans. In order for it to be forgiven, it has to be spent within 8 weeks of disbursement. And they are designed to be provided through your bank. The funds that were originally allocated, unfortunately, are all committed. There is an additional $310 billion that is up. It's in the works. It's been passed by the Senate. We're waiting approval by the House. President Trump has said that he will sign it. And that $310 billion, what's important to note is that $60 billion is set aside for smaller lending institutions such as community banks and credit unions. So apply for this through your regular bank, but also seek other lenders, smaller lenders, once they replenish the fund. The second loan program that's available is the existing expansion of the existing SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan. What's gotten a lot of attention is the $10,000 loan advance pending approval. You don't have to pay that back even if you're not approved. In actuality, however, this $10,000 is reduced for a lot of people down to even $1,000. So manage your expectations for that. Same as the PPP, there is an additional $60 billion in funding that's in the works for this. Again, as with the unemployment benefits, apply for any and all loans that you are qualified for, but look for smaller banks. The big banks that have had your business checking account for 20 years who don't know you otherwise aren't going to help you. Now, I'm going to briefly touch on what happens to people who have contracted this disease, who have long-term health residuals. Of course, thankfully, the vast majority of people are going to be have mild to moderate symptoms, but there will be residuals. As you see the list, and this list is not exhaustive, there are a lot of health residuals for people who have recovered. This disease presentation is very unusual. It has presented a challenge in terms of treatment, anticipating symptoms. It comes up in strange ways. I don't know if you heard, Nick Cordero, a Broadway actor, young, in good health previous to contracting the disease. Because of the circulation problems, he had to have his leg amputated. So there will be residuals. If there are residuals, and they're enough to cause a person to be unable to work, then what benefit is available is disability benefits. So disability benefits, next please. There are short-term disability benefits that are administered through the state of California, maximum 12 months. Easy to apply, you just need a physician's certificate, generally done online. Long-term disability is Social Security disability, including supplemental security income. There might also be long-term disability benefits, coverage provided through employment. These two benefits, Social Security and LTD benefits, interact, they work together. The Social Security benefits generally are offset against the LTD policies. This is a very, very, very brief overview. I'm happy to answer questions and provide further information if anyone else is interested. And thank you. And now, Sanaz will tell us more about debt relief for individuals and businesses.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Seema, for wrapping off that beautifully. We first started with Karine, then Seema, and it seems only natural to go in order to Ms. Sanaz Bereliani, who will let you know whether you should even file for bankruptcy or not. When it gets to that point, when should you pull the trigger? Go ahead, please, Sanaz, we're all ears.
Thanks, Sharon, and thank you, Seema. It was great to hear from you and Karna. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to you about bankruptcy. My name is Sanaz Bereliani of Bereliani Law Firm. I am a bankruptcy specialist and handle cases for debtors and creditors all over California. That being said, there's 3 different types of bankruptcies you can look to. I do agree with Karina that it shouldn't be the most immediate reaction. Bankruptcy is not for everyone, but it is a great choice. It's good to speak to an experienced attorney to look at your best options so you don't lose any assets and maximize the amount of savings. That being said, there's 3 types of bankruptcies: Chapter 7, 11, and 13. Chapter 7 is for individuals and businesses. Chapter 11 is mainly for businesses. Chapter 13 is for individuals. So first, we're going to start with Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is what I call the fresh start. The main purpose of it is to discharge your unsecured debt, such as your credit cards, personal loans, medical bills. In order to get this discharge, though, you do have to jump through the hoop of showing the court that you have no disposable income. In 2005, they came up with a test called the means test. And they basically look at your average gross income in the last 6 months. They take away your necessary living expenses, and they look to see, do you have any amount, even if it's a couple $100s, that can go to pay back your creditors every month? If the answer is no, you qualify for Chapter 7. So a couple of the perks of Chapter 7 is that there's no repayment plan. You don't pay anyone back. It only takes 4 to 6 months and you're done, and you can start rebuilding your credit. Now, in order to be successful in a Chapter 7, there's a lot of pre-planning that goes into it. By that, I don't mean charging up your credit cards, which I totally do not recommend. By that, I mean speaking to an experienced attorney and making sure that all of your assets are protected. That could include interest you have in your parents' home, money in your bank account, potential inheritances for people such as real estate agents or even voiceover actors. You get commissions and royalties. Those are seen as assets, however small. So you need to make sure your assets can be protected. Also, you have to look for red flags. The trustees are looking at your transactions in the last year. So they will be asking you, have you paid back any friends or family in the last year? Have you gifted any friends or family money or assets? And in the last 3 months, have you paid back any of your creditors? So what they can do, the trustee can do reach and apply. So they'll take the money from you, anything that they think should not have been paid, and pass it along evenly between your creditors. So even though it's a simple bankruptcy, it's not just paper pushing. You have to make sure you're qualified. Next, we're going to go to Chapter 13. Chapter 11. So Chapter 11 is mainly for businesses. We have 2 types. As of February, we have 2 types. The main bankruptcy is the normal Chapter 11. That's the one that you see the major corporations filing, such as Neiman Marcus, which is filing now, and soon to be JCPenney, 24 Hour Fitness, and unfortunately many others. So with the normal Chapter 11, there's no debt limit. You could be as big as you want. There's a lot of governance that is applied to it. You need to file a plan and disclosure statement within 300 days. The court is in review of every transaction. So even from the first week you're inside bankruptcy, you have to get permission from the court in order to pay your office rent, to pay your employees. So they're looking at every little thing. They came up with something called the Small Business Subsection 5 of Chapter 11. It's for small businesses. And this came out February 2020. And it's basically to simplify the Chapter 11 process for the smaller businesses. So for this, it was proposed that the debt limit would be, it says 2.5 there, but it's actually 2.75 million. This has been extended for the next year to 7.5 million due to the CARES Act. But this is a little bit more simplified. There's a trustee that's appointed that reviews the case. The time periods are shorter. There's less motion work that you have to do. It is still a big case, but nonetheless, a little bit more simplified than the normal bankruptcy case. This is a good bankruptcy for someone who has a business with a lot of debt. They want to still keep it open, not liquidate it, but they just need to kind of get rid of the junk and reorganize the situation. The next one is Chapter 13. Chapter 13 is one of my favorites. For most people, it's Chapter 7 because you discharge your unsecured debt. However, you get so much more done in a Chapter 13. So Chapter 13 is a reorganization, just like Chapter 11 is for businesses. This is for individuals. So in this bankruptcy, you have the option of saving your home from foreclosure, stopping a repossession. You can propose to pay back your taxes over time, your student loans. And another perk that most people don't know about is that you can get rid of equalization payments that you owe from your divorce in a Chapter 13. No other bankruptcy chapter does that. This is the only place you can get rid of your equalization payment. So in addition to the foreclosure, defense, and everything, you can apply for a loan mod these days inside of Chapter 13. So the courts have come up with a DMM portal. So the court allows for you to apply for Chapter 13, apply for a loan modification through this portal, and they will just govern, make sure that your application is getting reviewed on time, making sure you're getting a true chance. I've had many people that outside of bankruptcy kept getting denied, and inside the bankruptcy, they got a loan modification. Even if they got denied once, I was easily able to appeal it and get it approved. So it's not 100% guaranteed, but you do have a better chance than you would outside of bankruptcy. Now, inside this bankruptcy, just like Chapter 7, you have to do the means test analysis to show if you have disposable income or not. How much you pay back is based on many factors. Do you have equity that needs to be protected? Do you have any taxes that must be paid back? Do you have any disposable income? So what we do as your attorney is we propose a repayment plan. And you start making payments on that based on what we propose for you. So it is important to have an experienced attorney that can put together a payment plan that is gonna pay the least amount out of your pocket, but maximize your benefits. The benefit of this bankruptcy also is that there's no liquidation. The trustee is not looking to sell anything. You're basically saying, whereas in a Chapter 7, the trustee would have sold this asset of mine that is not protected, don't sell my asset, I'll pay back that amount over a 5-year period of time. So in this case, there is a debt limit. It is much less than a Chapter 11. So for a secured debt, the limit is 1.18 million. And for unsecured debts, credit cards, personal loans, medical bills, it's 394,725. So in this bankruptcy, you're in it for 3 to 5 years. Think of it as a government-run consolidation plan. So you're in it for 3 to 5 years, but you can still finance a vehicle. I've had clients that refinance their homes. They've done short sales. The only catch is that you need government approval, court approval. So for example, you need to finance a car, you let me know. I file a motion with the court to request approval of the terms of your loan. You take that order granting your motion back to the car dealership, they'll finance you. So there is a lot of communication required with your attorney, but you do benefit a lot from it. The best benefit is whatever you're paying back is at 0% interest. So you're saving a lot of money on that. The last point I want to make about Chapter 13 is right now the mortgage companies are stating that you can hold off on paying your mortgage for 3 months, 4 months. They're helping you out. But you need to read the small print all the time, especially now, because a lot of mortgage companies are saying you don't have to pay the payments for 3 months, but they're not saying what happens after that. So it may be that in 3 months you have a balloon payment due, or it may be that they're taking those 3 months, putting it at the end of your loan, and then it's going to capitalize. That I'm more okay with because it's just a little bit extra that you're going to be paying. But for the banks that are requiring you to pay it back within 3 months, you have a lump sum that's coming due. And most people, obviously, after going through COVID, are not going to have a lump sum available. So they're also under the misconception that, well, there's no evictions, there's no foreclosures, I'm fine. There's a stay on evictions, but there's not a stay on foreclosures. It's the bank's choice whether to foreclose right now or hold off. So they are still going through with foreclosures. I've seen it happen in the last couple of weeks. So please be mindful of that. If you are not paying your mortgage right now, please have a plan to pay it back in 3 months, or think about doing a Chapter 13 and doing a loan modification or just reorganizing your debt. Next slide, please. All right, so the important question, what do I do? How do I prepare for this? I think the pre-planning stage of bankruptcy is more important than when you actually file the case. In the pre-planning stage, you find out what the red flags are, if any of the assets are at risk for being liquidated or not. So it's very important to gather the necessary documents that your attorney says, provide it to them, and just have a really in-depth analysis of where you stand. They'll either tell you, you know, you don't qualify this month for Chapter 7, we have to wait 2 months so you qualify, or they'll tell you, you know, Chapter 7 is not good for you because your assets are not protected. Let's talk about Chapter 13. Or they may tell you, you know what, bankruptcy is not the right option for you. Let's talk about debt settlement, just like Carolin said. So gathering documents and disclosing everything under the sun to your attorney is the most important thing. Next issue, I think I talked about it under Chapter 7, is regarding payments in the last year. A lot of people assume that because they're filing bankruptcy, it's a great time to charge off their credit cards, you know, buy a computer for their cousin and a TV for their parents, because this is the last time they can charge off their credit cards. The credit card companies are looking out to see what charges you're doing. Are you planning out your bankruptcy? Is this bad faith? You know, are you making charges that you know you can't afford to pay back? If they see that you have had done charges like that in the last 3 months, then they are going to file complaints for non-dischargeability of debt inside your bankruptcy, and you are going to have to pay it back plus attorney fees. So please don't buy things for your family on the credit cards. Don't charge up in the last 3 months before, do cash advances. In regards to paying back friends or family, please don't do that either. And if you have paid back friends or family in the last year, disclose that to your attorney to see if it's going to be a problem or not. With that, that's looked at as a preferential transfer. You're preferring to pay back your family over, you know, Discover, Chase, Barclays Bank. Next, if you're going to be, my next topic I meant. So what I meant was in terms of hiding assets and things like that, don't cash out your bank account and put it under your mattress. They're going to be asking for your mortgage statement, the bank statement, everything to see where the funds went. So you just want to be on the up and up with everything, just so that there's not a federal investigation against you. So last point, just be on top of everything. You don't need to rush into bankruptcy. I know it's a really stressful time right now, and you know everyone is freaked out about what to do. I think it's really important to talk to a financial advisor or an experienced attorney to see what your best options are. And in the meantime, keep ahead of foreclosure dates, keep an eye out on judgments, and just see what your cash supply is going forward. If you have any questions, we're here to help you, and we'll all get through this together. Next, I'm going to introduce our great moderator, Sharen Gaten, and she will talk to us about criminal justice and personal injury cases.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you are having a good time learning a little. Boy, I sure am. As a criminal defense and personal injury attorney, we really are pretty much isolated to our fields, but bankruptcy, dare I say, does not sound as scary. I really appreciate the soft approach that you had with that, Sanaz. It really, I think, will give people the courage to move forward if they've exhausted their steps by speaking with Karina first, speaking to Seema if necessary, and then of course Sanaz. It's definitely an alternative for people who have come to that place in their lives. Thank you. Aaron, thank you for monitoring the slides. I'm ready for my first one, please. All right, as I mentioned, I'm going to be speaking about the criminal world first. The criminal world is very unique and different than anything else. We are unlike transactional attorneys where everything is one-on-one. We go to court every day, we talk to DAs every day, we meet with clients in jail, we meet with clients at the office. So it's very close quarters and it's very regular. This has all been very different now due to the corona time that we are in, because we are all in a crisis situation. So we can't put ourselves in that spot anymore. We can't expect our clients to be in that dangerous position either. So what has happened? What's going on with the criminal courts? What are the new protocols? A lot of people want to know. Now, first of all, there are some courts that are completely closed altogether. I have listed them: Beverly Hills, Bellflower, East LA, Santa Clarita, Spring Street, and Catalina. Those are completely closed. Now, when we say completely closed, those ones are not doing any business, but the other courts are actually open. And we actually have a hashtag, Lawyers Lives Matter, because it seems like the lawyers are the last to be considered, unfortunately. Most of the courts are only functioning at a 10% minimum. They are closed for non-essential businesses until May the 12th. The pro is that we are doing things that we've never done before. They are now allowing remote video, telephonic appearances. This is something that was never permitted in criminal court, unlike civil court, where they are civil and they have things like court call. We never had that option. In addition, I remember when this first happened, I fought hard for my defendants, my clients, not to be present because I have some clients that are immunocompromised, that are older. I don't want them to be there. Now, for misdemeanor reasons, for misdemeanor cases, we are permitted to appear under 977 authorization without clients. But for felonies, in 20 years of practice, I have never not gone to court with a felony alleged client. We are now allowed to appear telephonically without fear of any issue. I had an arraignment for a felony client with me. I had him on the conference call. The judge took the call. That was that. This never, ever happened before. So we're very thrilled that they are helping us out. And although they haven't closed the courts completely, at least they are working with us. And just recently it was in the news that this video arraignment program is going to be expanded to other courts. Next slide, please. All right. A lot of people are interested to know what are the calls that we're getting now? What's happened? Now, I think that it's quite noteworthy, and it seems very logical, that the most increase in crimes is coming in a few different categories. It's very obvious by the calls that come in now. The very first one is domestic violence and everything that falls under the umbrella of crimes of violence. Unfortunately, due to all the research that I've done and presentations that I've done, I've learned that domestic violence and things that are really sad, like child abuse, are up. Google searches are up by 75%. This is not just a local Los Angeles or California thing. I have read Spain, France, Lebanon, Turkey, Australia, the UK, everywhere the numbers are up. And frankly, it's because we're all in such small quarters. We're with our significant others, our families. This has been going on for what, the 5th week now? I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore. I'm thinking everyone else is in that same boat. And kids are not going to school. And there's concerns about financial security and safety. So people are getting nervous. And what happens when people get tense? People start to argue. What happens after that? Domestic violence. Also, another sad statistic I read about just the other evening is child abuse has gone up, but reporting of child abuse have gone down. Why is that? Kids are not in school. Kids are not in school, and the teachers who are required to report them are not privy to what's going on at home. So unfortunately, the kids that are most in danger are not being helped at this time. The next category that we are getting a lot of calls for is crimes of moral turpitude, which means things related to theft, specifically embezzlement. Literally just 3 calls within the past few days of people who have called us and stated that they were concerned about what was going on, they were fearful, and they have now accidentally or without any control of their own, or whatever the reasons are, they have embezzled funds from their bosses, from their companies, from their supervisors. They're very worried about this, and this is an extreme concern because they're exposing themselves to potential county jail. It's a great issue, and of course, the paying back, that never ends. They're going to have to pay back whomever they did, and now they're going to have criminal histories, and they won't be getting any future jobs. So it's an issue. And then we have DUIs. People are surprised to hear about DUIs because they think people are driving less, but people are drinking more. And people are thinking that they can run a quick errand. People are thinking they can get out of the house and take care of it. And frankly, it's a joke, but I'm sure if any of you are on Instagram or social media, people are day drinking, afternoon drinking, night drinking. It's a real thing now. So unfortunately, DUIs are up as well. And lastly, something that my colleague Carolin Shining will be picking up on is fraud and cyber crimes. Please be very alert. These are on the uptick and they are looking for victims. I'll let Caroline deal with that. She has some really fun slides she'll be showing you. Next slide, please, Erin. Okay, so what are the courts doing? And what are the essential cases? Everyone keeps talking about essential, essential. What is essential? What will the court help you with if you have a problem? All types of restraining orders, TROs, emergency restraining orders, domestic violence restraining orders, anything having to do with restraining orders, they will be heard. Civil ex parte proceedings still going on, in custody arraignments going on, criminal preliminary hearings, bail review hearings, parole and post-release community supervision revocation hearings, and last, criminal mental competency hearings. Those are still ongoing. Next, please. All right, what's happening in our communities? Arrest statistics. Now, if you take a walk with your kids, which is pretty much the only thing we're allowed to do anymore, you see actually a lot more police presence on the streets. However, arrests are down by at least 50%. And due to the pandemic, more judges are letting out prisoners on early release or something called compassionate release. I don't want anyone to be fearful. Serious violent offenders are not being released. The murderers, rapists, they're in for the long haul. They're not coming out. Don't worry about them. The other thing that I discovered that was interesting is I contacted a few local agencies. National sheriffs and police agencies are scaling back arrests for low-level offenders in order to limit their police exposure. So they're protecting their own as well. And things that are, you know, very low levels, such as, let's say, urinating in public or perhaps drunk in public, things like that. I think those are the ones where they will look the other way. Don't quote me on this. Obviously, we're not promoting any sort of not following the laws, but they're really going to be looking out for the bigger cases, as I mentioned, the previous slide, which explained what is of great concern. Thank you, Erin. Next, please. All right, something else that's completely brand new. The bail bondsmen are suffering, but this is going to be helpful for people who are, most helpful for people that are wrongfully abused or those who are claiming to be innocent or otherwise. We're not going to judge. Everyone is an allegedly guilty of something. We don't use those terms. So again, all my clients are innocent, thank God, so I don't have to worry. But there is no bail required for most misdemeanors and felonies. That is brand new. However, there are exceptions. What are the exceptions? Who does still need to pay bail? Serious violent felony strikes. We talked about that. Murder, rape, the high-level felony criminal threats, those are all in that category. Now, sexual offender cases, very stigmatic, a hot topic. Rape, sex offenders, sex registration cases, those you still have to pay bail, rightfully so. Domestic violence, or those who had a domestic violence in the recent past and now have criminal protector orders, those people will not be spared. Felony criminal threats, what does that mean? That means making some sort of a threat that is imminent for one person to assume you're going to take their life. I'm going to kill you tonight. That's felony criminal threats. Resisting arrest causing injury. Stalking, please don't stalk people. You're going to have to pay bail and you're going to have to hire me. It's going to be very expensive. Let it go. Move on. Aggravated dissuading of a witness. Felons owning, using, possessing a firearm. As anyone who's a felon should know, there is a 10-year moratorium, so please be leery of that. They will come after you. Next, DUI, we mentioned. Again, this is a note for the day drinkers. I'm going to catch you. Last but not least, we have been so concerned about, we've seen a little bit of it, and God willing, we're not going to see too much of it. Looting. Looting, that is on the list for people who will have to pay bail. Next slide, please. All right. Now, if I had to give predictions of what will happen in a post-COVID, post-corona world, I have thought about this. I have spoken with also colleagues of mine. There will definitely be delays expected for in-custody clients. Sadly, those folks that are in custody cannot afford bail, or if they have too high of a bail, or frankly, no bail. There are cases like that as well. They are going to suffer from the great backlog in the calendar, and there's going to be some pushback. because everyone believes justice delayed is justice denied. We're going to have to cross that bridge when we get to it, but it seems like it's going to happen. On the positive note, there will be more remote appearances permitted for non-essential hearings. I'm trying to put that out there, kind of like a wish list, but I think the judges will see that it's not necessary for us to hold everyone's hand and come in there for progress reports, because it's really not very efficient for the judges' time, and the calendar will already be backlogged. So I'm predicting more remote appearances. Again, I don't want to be an alarmist. I'm definitely an optimistic person by nature, but I do believe there will be a potential increase in crime. Why? The economy may not rebound as quickly as it went down. People may be desperate, as I'm seeing with the embezzlement cases and the theft cases that I'm getting calls for. If people are not savvy or sophisticated to know that there are options that were mentioned before by my previous colleagues, like bankruptcy or, arranging your debt or all sorts of PPP and EIDL programs, if they don't know, they might resort to committing crimes. And as pointed out by another colleague on the panel, the gun stores are packed, and you drive by the marijuana stores, these places are all packed. So drug, and I don't mean just marijuana, I mean the hardcore drugs. Drug and gun sales are at an all-time high. And as we all know, sadly, desperate people do desperate things. So it's good for us to be aware and cognizant and live in reality. Those are my thoughts for criminal. Next slide, please. I also want to address the other side of my practice, which is the personal injury world. Many of you out there listening, many of my panelists, I'm sure, even myself, I've gotten into accidents. Living in LA, it's very common. And we want you to know that we are ready. We are open, we are filing, we are serious. We are here to help our clients. We're noticing that, first of all, there's a huge tick for electronic filing. It's up and running, everything's good. We're not being held back in any fashion. There are a few things we've noticed for clients who have gotten into accidents. Now, your typical going to the doctor, going to the chiropractor, going to see a surgeon, getting epidurals or shots, etc. This has changed. We are now in the world of telemedicine. And telemedicine is okay. Telemedicine is being accepted. Telemedicine is being acknowledged by the insurance companies. They're well aware this is what has to be done to safeguard everyone's well-being, the doctors and our patients. There are fewer car accidents because fewer people are on the road, but people are driving a little bit more crazy because they're assuming that there won't be people on the road. So people are taking greater risks due to the high stress and due to the open roadways. So be alert. There are fewer slip and falls because the majority of people are listening and are sheltering in place. And if you fall in your own home, sorry, you can't sue yourself. So that's not happening. In response, my experience as a personal injury attorney is the insurance companies, sadly, are trying to take advantage of this. People are in a very difficult situation as it is, and they are trying to take advantage. They are increasing pressure on us to put pressure on our clients to take lowball offers. We're not going to fall for that. We're not interested. We're going to sit. We are in it for the long haul. We will see this through. Now, for clients who are in the litigation stage, this is also very important for you to be open to depositions by a distance, otherwise known as virtual depositions, where you would be sitting in something like this and there'd be another person on the other side questioning you. And now even mediations are being are happening on Zoom. I mean, Zoom is incredible. We're on Zoom right now. Mediations are happening. Settlements with companies are moving forward. But I want to really stress that now is the time for us to be aggressive. And all of my associates at my firm, we all have this mindset. We want to be more aggressive now because we're worried that some of the insurance companies will not be there on the other side. So we're worried that some of the companies might not be there. They might go into bankruptcy. So we're being very aggressive early on in order to make certain that we are getting good offers while our clients still have money. So please be alert to that. Now, in this last slide, I'm going to tell you about my post-COVID predictions for personal injury for that world. Erin, if I can stay on that one, perfect. The presiding judge, Judge Brazil, has continued all civil and non-jury trials set for 4/17 to 5/12. They've all been continued to 6/22 and beyond. So please be aware that also includes jury duty. So any of you folks get jury duty notices, don't worry, it's going to be continued to 6/22 and beyond. The time period which we won't be in court is going to be treated as a holiday for calculating statutory and filing deadlines. So that's good news for the attorneys to be aware of. As I mentioned, we must be realistic. For those listening who might have cases, for those who are attorneys, we might not start jury trials until 2021. We have to be aware of that. Something that was touched on, I want to pick up on from Carolin and Sanaz. Please do not stop paying your car insurance premiums. Don't do that. Because if you do and there's an accident, this is going to lead to an increase in Prop 213 cases and no coverage cases. That doesn't help anyone. So very important to still keep up with your car insurance premiums. Also, as I mentioned, clients might be going to a financial crisis and asked to settle sooner for less. Please just hang in there. We will get through this. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We don't want to sell you guys short. Lastly, please be aware insurance companies are going to fight harder to drag these cases out because they think there's not that dangling carrot of, not a dangling carrot per se, actually the dangling threat of imminent trial. We're going to see this through. And for the lawyers out there, there is the concern for more binding arbitrations because if we want to settle cases, we might have to resort to that. Now, with all of that said, I want everyone to know we are confident, we are strong, we are working, we are filing. If you have any questions, whether it be in the criminal world or in the personal injury world, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are available. We are here for you. Thank you so much. And I am going to pass off to my next colleague. Aaron, the next slide, please. Excellent. We are right in time for Nikki Jacobson, who's going to be speaking about workers' compensation and immigration. She is a specialist in the field and she will have a lot of great information. Nikki, please take it away.
Thank you, Sharon. Hello, everyone, and thank you for letting us into your homes and computers this evening. The two areas of law I'm going to be talking to you about, unfortunately or fortunately, are changing almost every day, especially the immigration aspect, and you will hear something today and it'll change tomorrow. And if you can believe it, we even had changes today, and almost till 4:30 when the press conference was happening, we had information about immigration. But going to my first slide, I'm going to be talking about workers' compensation. And Seema touched upon this about COVID-19 and disability issues, but I'm discussing COVID-19 and workers' compensation. So if you are a grocery store worker or a nurse or anyone who has been affected and has contracted COVID-19 through their place of work, they are entitled to file for workers' compensation. And it's not just an issue in regards to, okay, well, it's the flu and you may get better. And it's not that. Unfortunately, COVID-19, we're seeing a lot of heart issues, circulation issues, neurological issues, and heart failure issues. So you have to consider the fact that it's not just the flu and your workers' comp is not going to be necessary. It will be something that you will need to consider for your workers' compensation benefits. Before we continue with the rest of the slides, that's fine, you can go ahead. I'm going to talk about the status of workers' compensation as a whole. The court system is open. Court hearings are being done telephonically with the attorneys calling into the judges. So we still have court hearings. Remember that workers' compensation is different than other areas of law where we are benefit driven. If we don't go to court, a lot of our clients will not get benefits, and we need to make sure that if they're entitled to benefits, they continue getting them. So the court system is very essential, and luckily for us in the workers' compensation world, we are able to do court hearings via telephone. In addition, depositions are going on and going forward with Zoom and video conferencing, so that's also a positive, and we're having to basically make sure that our clients have access to the computer, to a computer, and the ability to go forward with their cases for their deposition on a computer. On top of that, there is telemedicine, and a lot of people are not very comfortable with that or are not sure how that works, because traditionally we're used to going to the doctor, and that means going to the doctor's office and being physically present with the doctor. That is not the case right now. With many of the doctors, we are having to have appointments via telemedicine, which is basically a video call or a conference call with the patient and the doctor. And one of the key things we've been having to do for a lot of clients is change doctors, because there are still some doctors who are not able to do the telemedicine. And so those doctors who are able to do telemedicine are more needed and more wanted right now within the system. And we have to make sure that that's taken care of. Now, with any workers' compensation case, you have to make sure that you report it, and you have to make sure that you get the proper forms. And the form listed here, the DWC-1 form, is essential in making sure that you submit that form to the employer, regardless of what type of, whether it's COVID related or not COVID related. But it's very important to consider something right now in this day and age, where verbal reporting in any area of law is not good for you. So make sure, even if it's text, even if it's an email, that you properly report any injury. In addition to that, something that I'm getting a lot of questions about, both from employers and employees in the workers' compensation world, is the concept of, guess what? We're working from home. And if we're working from home, what happens if injuries happen at work? Well, they're going to be happening at home. So as a result, there are now issues that are above and beyond what we're used to, where there are no witnesses at home. So if you're home alone and you slip and fall during the work hours, if you go down the stairs and you fall on the stairs, is that going to be a work-related injury? Well, if it's during your work hours, yes. And something that this is a case that I consulted with and got retained for this week, was the person is at home doing all of the letters that she needs to do. She's a legal assistant, and she had to go drop off mail. And during the process of dropping off mail, she got in a car accident. The other person is uninsured. Sharen, there you go. Someone who's uninsured. The other person is uninsured. So as to her health and her being taken care of, workers' compensation is there for her because she was during work hours and doing something for the employer. So yeah, that's the employee side. But as the employers, you need to be careful, and you need to make sure you set hours. Just because your employees are not in your actually physically present, you need to continue making sure you are providing supervision. And supervision means making sure you know their hours, you know where they're working, how they're working, and basically giving them permission to work in certain places. And you have to, although it's their home and you can't tell them how to run their homes, you still can set guidelines, and you should be aware of that as employers. Okay, if you can, thank you. So if you file for workers' compensation, and one of the most important part is to report the injury. But the next thing that you need to consider is that you will be getting medical care, temporary disability payments, permanent disability payments if there's a permanent injury, and death benefits, if hopefully that won't become necessary. But right now in COVID-19, it has become necessary. So again, someone who has passed away because they contracted COVID at work and now they have passed away, there are death benefits available to those employees. And even while we were on the call today, Mayor Garcetti specifically stated that anyone who's a critical worker, including grocery workers and healthcare workers, are now able to get tested, whether they have symptoms or not. So they are aware that people are getting injured on the job as a result of this virus, and that they need to do something about it. So it's good. We know that the benefits are there. We just need to do something about it. Unfortunately, the courts are open. The lawyers are available to do what they need to do, but the insurance companies are also not having a full staff on premises, and there are people working from home, and things aren't happening as fast as they should. And in the workers' compensation system, it doesn't work fast to begin with. And now, right now with COVID-19, we're finding it more difficult to get answers from insurance companies. So yes, file your claim. Yes, proceed to get medical treatment. Make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, but you need to also be aware that if you can't get payment through the workers' compensation system right now, what are your alternatives? And please remember, I know that Seema talked about EDD. Remember that any kind of disability, you can file for EDD and get disability payments if a doctor approves your disability. You can also pursue Social Security, and if it's to the extent that you need to, start the process or talk to a Social Security attorney like Ms. Seema Ghai. Or if not, something that a lot of people are not considering, and I'm gonna sound like a duck, AFLAC, a lot of employers provide private disability, different types of insurance, and we forget about the benefits that are provided to us through our employers. And this is the time that you may need to look at your benefits packet and see what kind of disability, private disability insurance, or some kind of program that your employer provides. And you need to look into that to see if you can also get benefits. So yes, the government is trying to do their job and help us out in any way they can, but we also have to be proactive and make sure that if it's necessary, we take action and go forward with the workers' compensation or any other kind of disability that's government assistance that is available to us. Next slide, please. Now, before I go into immigration, I'm going to give one word of advice and warning. I have clients who are now in desperate need of money and are calling to say that they want to settle their workers' compensation case, and they want to basically do it for pennies on the dollar. As your attorney, I will advise you what is best legally, but the choice is up to you and how you want to proceed. But if you decide to proceed now and settle your case, and then later on feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, there's no recourse. What we do is we make sure that you sign a proper documentation telling you that we're not recommending this settlement, and that this is your choice and your choice alone. So I know it's hard. I know we're going through a lot and there's a lot of money issues, but your future medical care and your future disability issues should not be put aside out of fear right now. So take that into consideration. Now, moving on to immigration. As Sharen said, I'm a dual certified specialist. I'm a specialist in workers' compensation. I'm also a specialist in immigration law. And right now, more than ever, you need to, as an immigrant, as someone who's undocumented, as someone who needs immigration assistance, you need to listen to the news more than ever, both on the national level and on the state level. And I will discuss both with you, and there are a lot of fears out there right now, but you need to be aware that the news is going to be your friend at this time. Next slide, please. So California has programs and the federal government has programs, but in regards to what happened today, and I'm going to discuss it as the executive order that Trump has now signed. It's basically 60 days. For 60 days, there will be no green cards issued and no work visas. That does not include the healthcare workers or farmers. So healthcare workers and farmers that want work visas are still going to be allowed those visas. But anyone who has an application or was going to file for a green card, nothing is going to be happening. But keep in mind that since COVID-19 started, the U.S. embassies and USCIS immigration has been basically closed unless other than extreme emergency issues, has been closed. So that's something to consider. They're already delayed, they're already behind. And right now, because of this hold today, now you might say, why are we doing this 60-day hold of no green cards and no work visas? President Trump has said that the virus is affecting American workers and to help American workers. We will have to come to see if that is true and if that will actually come to pass that way. But as predictions go, and Sharon's good with predictions, so I'm going to follow her lead and tell you that I can guarantee you that there will be a federal lawsuit filed in some district court somewhere in the United States tomorrow in order to stop and file an injunction for this executive order to go forward. So we don't know if it's actually going to go into effect immediately, even though the president would want that. So tomorrow morning, we will know what district court has already a filing, or even by tonight, we will, maybe in Hawaii, we will know what's happening. So be aware of that and those issues. Now, in regards to immigration status in California, we need to take into consideration that we've talked about a lot of relief available for people who pay taxes, who have Social Security numbers, who are able to show that they have paid into the system so they can get money out of the system. Well, there are a lot of undocumented workers in the United States, or undocumented people in California, who need some kind of aid. And so California thus far has set aside $75 million through funding, private funding usually in this case, as for the disaster relief fund. And they're going to basically provide benefits for people who are not able to get unemployment. However, this is in no way close to what other people are getting in unemployment. Sorry. And just be aware of it. If you go to the next slide, I want you to know that there's a $500 per adult for if you're undocumented, and $1,000. The application process has not started, but if you just Google California undocumented and immigration benefits, or undocumented California benefits, all of the listings come up. If you go to the next slide, here's the link for Guide for Immigrant Californians. It has information on it and it will be helpful. If you have any questions, please email me. My email is provided, and I see a couple of emails to me already requesting my email address to be sent out to people, and I will do that to the chat group so that you have my email address, and I'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nikki. Always so informative and helpful. We appreciate you. Next, we have Erin Joyce, who will be talking to us. Erin has a background in state bar defense, attorney defense. She's the lawyer that you don't need until you really need her, and then you want her to be your best friend. Avoiding fraud and scammers in the era of COVID-19. Please, Erin, take it away.
Great. As Sharon said, and I appreciate that intro, my background is as a state bar prosecutor. So I've been intimately involved in public protection my entire career. So it's like they say, there's always an opportunity, there's an opportunity with every crisis to take advantage, and that's what the scammers are doing right now. Here's a picture of the public announcement from the FBI. There are over 3% as of March of the different phishing and other frauds that are going on the internet are already related to different aspects of the pandemic. And so the FBI is warning folks about fake CDC emails that simulate government issuance. What they're looking to do is steal your personal information, or for you to download something onto your device so that they can lock your device, steal your information, and demand payment. There are many different, very sophisticated phishing emails now that look and they simulate very genuine, either logos or insignia. They're going to have an email address that looks to you like it's coming from a government official. And many people are desperate, they're worried, And so you see a lot of action on counterfeit treatments or equipment related to the pandemic. The FTC also has come out with its own warning list, talking about anyone that's offering home tests or special masks or vaccines that are people to be aware of. Just hang up on robocalls. Unfortunately, a lot of the older people have learned a lot of telephone etiquette, which is dead now. Just hang up on those phones. You have to watch for those phishing emails and texts. And many appeals are coming out from legitimate sources right now, but they're flooded with all these illegitimate types of charity appeals. So you really have to be careful and research who you're donating to and stay in the know with the news, because as upsetting as this news is lately, honestly, things are changing constantly. You have to beware. Even the state bar has jumped on, and they have a special fraud alert talking about COVID, although it's related to legal, obviously attorneys. And anytime you get a solicitation of help from a lawyer, you have to be careful to make sure that it's legitimate, that it's coming as an appropriate advertisement. And right now, really everyone's taking an opportunity to get into the action here. So be careful if you're solicited for any of the type of benefits that we've been talking about tonight. Be careful to deal with a legitimate attorney rather than a non-attorney or notario or someone that isn't qualified to really represent you. I wanted to share with you the very first case filed on the corona fraud. It was here in the Central District of California. It's this Heath Middlebrook. He was saying that he in 6 weeks had come up with his own patent pending coronavirus treatment, and he was arrested, and he's the first person charged in federal court with a mail fraud related to coronavirus, but he's the first of many that are going to be facing those kind of charges, and there's no end to the amount of victims that are ready to come forward, so we have to be aware. Another very serious and sophisticated scam with all of these businesses going online and having all of their workforce dispersed in all these different homes are fake tech support, offering to do discount tech support, and what they're really doing is stealing all of your private information. Also, people will be, different companies will say, we're gonna help you with this payroll protection program or other SBA loans. So it's very important to be alert, because if it sounds too good to be true, and they're the first ones that have the cure, I would pass them up. I know we're getting low on time, so if you ever have any questions, I certainly am available. But my background really is related to if you have trouble with an attorney, or if an attorney more likely has trouble with the bar. So let me turn it over now to Carolyn Shining.
Excellent. Oh. Thank you so much, Erin. We really appreciate those alerts on criminal activity. Again, the criminals are out there, and they can call me. All right. Anyhow, we're going to go next to Carolin Shining, who will be shining a light on the law and telling us about price gouging and also business issues and intellectual property. Please, Carolyn, take it away.
Yeah. I always try with Sharon. You outshine me. You outshine me by a ton. Okay, so I just want to thank everybody who's gone before and everybody who's here. And again, we are running a little short on time, and we want to have questions at the end, so I'll try and keep things quick. And everything that's been said before, I think really detailed, really great information that people really need. And we put this program together as fast as we could because so much is happening. I just want to thank my colleagues. It's great to be among them and to learn all these great new things. My practice is a little different. I practice business law and intellectual property. I've been a lawyer for 30 years, and a lot of what I do is help small businesses and individuals who've invented things and creating things protect their intellectual property and get their business off to a good running start and avoid big lawsuits that might come their way. Today, what I want to focus on dovetails with what Erin was talking about, and Erin knows her stuff. She worked at the State Bar of California for 18 years protecting people. But what I'm going to talk about, there's two things, if you just advance the slide there. The first thing, though, is what's really, really on everybody's mind, which is the lack of baseball in our lives. So I know that's really, come on, it's April. What's going on in the world? It truly is insane. Unfortunately, I could not find a picture of a Dodger for you. I apologize. This is the only public domain picture I could find of someone stealing second base. It's Brett Gardner of New York Yankees. He was the AL base leading base stealer in 2011. Don't steal images online. Bad things happen when you take somebody's copyrighted image. But my point is that what price gouging really is doing, what unfair competition, what they're doing, they're stealing from you. They're stealing from the public. So there's a couple different ways this relates to consumer goods, business competition, and something called false advertising. These are sort of the flip sides of protecting intellectual property. So again, I'm going to talk about something that's really, really important, that if you'd asked me in January what was really going to be on everybody's minds in April, I'm sure you all would have said, advance there. Just click next. Toilet paper. I know you were all really worried in January about toilet paper. And then hand sanitizer. That was probably top of your list, and this is much more serious, but masks. And then flour. I'm sure all of you stocked up in January on flour, knowing that in March, April, and May, you were going to have to make so much bread to post on your Facebook pages that you had no idea. But with those things in mind, when you see price gouging, and everybody has read about it on the internet, when you read the news, it's hard to avoid crazy, terrible stories of price gouging. The fellows in Kentucky who set aside 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer. They sold 300 on eBay for $7 to $80 each. The Kentucky Attorney General didn't like that. They got off without any fines, but you know what? They donated it all. They meant to donate it anyway. So, good for them. But in all seriousness, where this comes down generally is our local state and local attorney general. In California and in a lot of states, we have price gouging statutes, very specific price gouging statutes. It's California Penal Code Section 396. Gavin Newsom was ahead of the curve. On March 4, 2020, he set forth a particular executive order that triggered this statute. And what it did is it froze prices as of February 4th on a number of different kinds of goods. If you change your price more than 10% on these goods, you could be liable for $10,000 in criminal fines, up to a year in prison. And in New York, it's $25,000. The things that are covered are a lot of things you would think, it's not everything, it's things that you would think of in terms of earthquake or wildfires. And in fact, we're sadly coming up on just the extensions from last year's wildfires. So we're rolling into new periods. This is food, water, pet food, emergency supplies, bandages, isopropyl alcohol, not liquor. Sharon, you're talking about the liquor, not liquor. Liquor is not a hand sanitizer, much, if people have been reading about that, it is not. So they can gouge all they want on your liquor. So, keep that in mind when you're driving down the 405. But anyway, so there's some exceptions to this, but it's a really powerful thing. And people have been arrested. People in San Diego were arrested for stockpiling toilet paper. People on eBay, it's just, try to keep a limit on your news. It is important for some things, but this will drive you crazy. Listen to what people can do. The important point is in Governor Newsom's order, and a part of the statute is that it does allow private lawyers like myself to bring private causes of action as private attorneys general. Since the attorney general is busy with all kinds of things, they allow private attorneys such as myself to bring an action for you for fraud. It's specifically in this case price gouging, and there are additional penalties, there are additional damages, injunctions that can be obtained. Not sure if this is like Sharen was saying, if you can go to court and get an injunction as a private attorney for this. There was one judge in Chicago who really slapped down an attorney for trying to get a temporary restraining order for infringing unicorn art and elf designs on purses, little pink elves, and really, he thought it was really important. The judge said, no. There's shockingly much more important things than stolen, infringing unicorn designs. Okay, go ahead, next. Okay, two last things. Again, false advertising is a really interesting part of trademark law. When you own a trademark, and someone calls you a bad name as a company, you have an obligation to go out there and protect yourselves. And 3M is the world's largest manufacturer of face masks. I'm sure pretty much everybody knows that by now. Last week, they filed massive lawsuits in New York, Texas, and another state, trying to stop some of the gouging and some of the distribution of fake and false masks. So you have an obligation to do that when you own something like a trademark, like your goodwill. And those are funny names called disparagement, dilution, passing off, and it's all about quality control. So they've been under a lot of heat for a lot of things, and they're sort of now starting to have to fight back in court to protect their good name. So you're gonna read a lot more about 3M in the future. And then last little thing, I think somebody, I can't remember, one of the other speakers mentioned patents. I think it was Aaron, and that guy who got the patent application. You could apply for a patent for anything. Lord knows if they'll get it to you. But there's a controversy in the world about whether or not you can patent drugs and how much you can charge for them and the protection that you get from the government and whether or not you should be entitled to that. Some major corporations have come out with something called the Open COVID Pledge. And it basically asks major companies, biopharmaceutical companies and the like, to say, not for this. You should, everything that we do that helps people with COVID is going to be given in the public domain. And it's really new. It's a really shocking development in the world of business. So again, there's crazy stuff, there's bad stuff. There's stuff that we never thought we'd ever see. And I'm glad to, hopefully, if you see any of this gouging go on, if you let somebody know, go to the Attorney General of California's website, there are forms to fill out, call a private attorney, and let's try and get this world back to some normalcy. So thanks, guys.
Now, some questions. So I think.
All right, I see, Aaron, there were a few questions that were asked on the chat. And there's one for you, Carolyn, right now. It says, can you be sued for gouging?
You can be sued, and the Attorney General can bring a case against you. There are there are two big exceptions. And I didn't mention also there's real property rental issues. But if
she's asking specifically, Miss Adeline, she's asking about fashion face coverings.
Oh,
the new ones that look like they're medical, but they're not, but they have, let's say, like
yeah, you've got to be careful in your advertising about what you say, and that's part of the false advertising. Everything that you say, and particularly with regard to things that make medical claims, the FDA, FTC, there's a lot of regulations that cover things that make medical claims. So you have to be very careful for false advertising when it comes to medical claims. That's something that can really be problematic down the road. So yeah, you should talk to an attorney before you market anything like that.
All right, excellent. There were a few other questions I noticed that were going on throughout everyone's discussions. They appear to be answered. Aaron, is there anything that you see outstanding?
One question was whether or not the slides would be made available to those that attended. And the answer would be just email any one of us and we'll be happy to provide you the slides because they contain a lot of the information that people want to be able to refer back to. That's one of them.
And if that wraps it up, we just want to thank everyone for being a part of this inaugural evening. We are going to be conducting a series, so you'll be seeing more of us. It will be more depth in the future evenings on specific subjects of interest. We are Outside Counsel Network. We want to be your go-to attorneys in our respective specialty areas. And if we are not familiar with that area of law, we're happy to point you in the right direction to others who are. Again, our disclaimer, because we're lawyers, so we have to give disclaimers. This presentation doesn't constitute legal advice. It doesn't establish an attorney-client relationship. This presentation is a communication, not a solicitation or advertisement. The matters discussed here should not be considered a legal opinion or substitute for legal counsel. Please ask your answers from any one of us. We're happy to help you guys. If you take a look on the bottom of your last slide, you will see an email. You will see our contact on Facebook. Again, reach out to any one of us. You guys are all going to get the slides. We're available. Again, we're here to help you guys. We're so thrilled. Thank you. It's been an honor. And oh yes, thank you for the compliment on the red and the black. The attendees are enjoying our red and black colors of our
Sharon?
phone.
Hi, it's Nikki. Just one quick thing. I just sent the correct Facebook link for Outside Counsel. So if you guys want to go to our Facebook and like us and get to know more about our programs, I just sent it to everyone. The correct Facebook page is facebook.com/Outside Counsel.
Thank you so much, everyone. If you need us, we're available. You can find us. We look forward to meeting with you again soon. Thank you. Have a good evening. And as I'm signing off on all my emails, stay safe and stay sane.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.